Hey, welcome to the Jungle Brothers podcast. It's Joey here. Today I'm joined by Paul and Serge to go deep on coaching. Before we jump into that, I have a favor to ask of you. We put these episodes out once a week with the idea to share enlightening conversations with you. And I don't ask anything in exchange for that, except for one simple gesture for you that goes a really long way for us. And that is to simply subscribe or to follow this podcast on whichever platform you listen to it to. It goes a really long way for us, and I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Let's jump into the episode. Yeah, the metal filter on what's the vessel? What's the machine you're using? Oh, okay. So it's a Breville filter.
No. I've got my Crafted-Espresso machine.
Yeah.
I've got my Eureka Mignon Specialita grinder. Ooh. Yeah. That was a big investment, but well worth it.
More than the coffee machine, I take it.
More than the coffee machine, yeah.
Yeah.
The coffee machine we got from...
Closer on that bad boy for me. There you go.
The coffee machine we got from Facebook Marketplace, secondhand, $500. And as I said, we bought the grinder, brand spanking new.
How much was the grinder?
We got it on special. You know what we were talking about before we got on air about how I'm trying to be more assertive?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was assertive with the grinder. It was retailing for $1,000. When I saw it on the internet, it was $800. And so I asserted my point and we got it for $800.
Oh, you went into a store?
I went into a store.
Spoke to a person?
Believe it or not, people in stores.
You can just yell at the computer, yeah. You're like, I saw this shit for $800.
Correct.
What's doing?
And I was actually disappointed because it was very easy. I was full prepared to go in, all guns blazing, stand my ground.
Should have gone lower.
I should have gone lower. But $800, bargain. And I use it every time I get the chance.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And that's where you use the metal filter.
No, the metal filter.
Sorry, that was the espresso. Yeah, that was the grinder. Where do you use the metal filter? This is what I want to get to.
Where do I use it?
Yeah, like what filter is this?
I don't know. I haven't put as much intentionality into the metal filter as I have into
But it goes into a drip coffee.
Correct.
Setup.
Right.
And what is that? Drip coffee? Is it a little drip thing?
Yeah, it's similar
Just
to
like
yours.
Like this, like the Mocha Master.
Correct.
Okay.
Who do you need to shout out again? This is where you do it, right?
Panavore.
That's the one.
That's what we're getting to. Big shout out to the Tree. So what Tree does, this is epic, right? It's our coffee sponsor, Pagewood Cafe. I go there most Fridays for breakfast with the guys I train with in the morning. And then Tree says, "You need coffee for the show?" I say, "Yes, please." And he says, "How many guests?" So there's 3. So then he weighs the coffee and he measures the water to the perfect ratio, and he gives me the container of coffee and a glass jug of the water. And he's like, put the coffee, rinse, put the coffee in, put the water, press start, don't do anything else. Like he's extremely, he's meticulous, but he also keeps the process very simple and repeatable. That's his secret. Because when I post about it on Instagram, people will often give me tips like, oh, you should wet the filter first, or, you should put the water, like keep the thing closed, let the water cover the ground, stir them a little bit, then let it. He's like, no, because that's all variables. So he's like, rinse, coffee, water on, walk away.
He gives water?
Yeah, that glass like milk jug up there.
Right, I didn't even realize
He
that.
measures it out. So, but because he's like calculating, what's the perfect cup? How many grams of coffee does that need? How much water has to go through it? It's the fucking golden ratio right here.
It kind of sounds like training.
Oh.
You put a video of a squat up and it's just you squatting and you're doing your thing. But then everyone's on the interwebs going like, your left finger is slightly misplaced. And it's like variables. But the point is you're lifting heavy weight.
I squatted today.
You squatted today.
Yeah.
Shut up, you.
Yeah, that's right. We want to get caught up in the details often, don't we?
It's very, very attractive too, particularly for someone like myself, I would say. And sometimes, God forbid, it stops me from actually squatting.
Yeah, actually, I like that as a message that I've been seeing lately from Range of Strength and also, is it Atlas Power Shrugged? I don't know do you follow either of those guys on Instagram?
I do not. I try and keep my following very, 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 very refined to cajole me to spend less time on Instagram.
That's fair. I think you'd like both of those cats.
Okay.
Paul, do you follow both of them?
Did you say Barbell Shrugged?
No, Atlas Power Shrugged.
And what was the other one?
Range of Strength.
Yeah, I follow Aaron.
Yeah, follow Aaron, right? But they've been pushing like this message lately of like, the message is stop fucking analyzing the shit out of your technique and working on your back squat for the next 2 years and just fucking back squat. Mm-hmm. And it's like, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter back position, bracing perfectly. They're like, yes, you got to have those things, but there's a point where you just have to fucking squat if you want to get stronger and put on muscle. And I can definitely vibe with that because I know what it's like to constantly be reviewing your technique and looking for the inefficiencies. And it's a good thing to do, but as we all know, it's like, well, how much time do you put into identifying the inefficiencies before you just do the work, do the heavy work?
Yeah. And what are you trying to achieve? Like, what are you doing it for? It's really important.
And I think often for us in the coaching game, you're kind of trying to achieve technical perfection because you want to impress your other coach mates.
Very true.
Right.
Or not, you're not even trying to impress them. You're concerned that someone's going to be, oh, hey man, don't know if anyone's giving you this feedback, but you know what like you're worried that someone's going to see you to be like a low standard.
So true.
Isn't it?
As I put a post up of me doing my first Olympic lifting session in ages, first thing I wrote was, I haven't spent a lot of time on Olympic lifting before. And I was like, this is fucking classic. And I got to put it in there just so people know.
Yeah.
My balance isn't right. And
yeah, bro. Classic, right?
Yeah.
It's exactly the classic movement one is, got this, now time to clean it up.
Yeah.
And it's like, just letting you guys
Unlocked.
know that I know it's not perfect. Yeah, unlocked. Now time to clean it up. You're like, shut the fuck up.
That's a cool mantra.
That guy.
That's a cool mantra.
Unlock, now time to clean it up.
Yeah, got this, now to clean it up.
It is.
That's cool.
It is. It came from a good place. But
I dig that.
But it's now become a calling card of any movement person that achieves a new milestone. So it's like, unlock the 60-second handstand.
Yeah.
Now time to clean it up.
So can I recycle that in a CrossFit setting and like people won't know what I'm talking about?
And you will
And then we can start
you
a
will
trend.
become a thought leader in this space. Yeah, bro, take it there. No, it's great, right? Like it speaks to the right thing. But it kind of is also like it highlights this concern that we all have about what others will say.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, to your point, I agree with you. There's a conversation I was having last week about if you're putting clients into two boxes, which you should always do because generally very simple people, right? That's
Simpler
sarcasm,
than
that's
us.
sarcasm for all the listeners out there. Generally, we find people are biased towards like the action, the doing, like the let's just get on the bar and go. And then we have people in the other camp which are biased to overanalyzing and thinking about where their left pinky toe is. And so it's like, I think as a coach, you make an assessment as to which direction your client is biased, if they are like a overdoer or overthinker, and then you do the opposite to effectively get the most out of that session and the person. So for someone who is like rigorously overanalyzing their Olympic lifting, you go, hey bro, like just get under it and move fast. And then for the person who just like yanks at it from the floor and has no intention or awareness about their body, you go, hey man, like just place your hands evenly on the bar, pay attention to where they're sitting, and then go. So I think it's like, it depends on the person. And like everyone in this room knows that coaching is very nuanced, and we probably all know that. I think that the message probably resonated with us because maybe we are biased to overthinking things, and that's kind of what makes us coaches, because it's like, it's kind of our job to think about these sorts of nuanced positions. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. Yeah, I think it's kind of what you're saying there. Really, it's the same as cueing, isn't it? You're often giving someone an instruction that is beyond where they need to be, but because they're so far in the opposite direction, you're just trying to return them to a center. Like the classic knees out thing. It's like if someone's knees are going and you say knees out, they're probably going to arrive at somewhere that's in the middle. So it's kind of the same as that conceptually. Yeah.
And coffee's the same. Like I said, to bring right back to that analogy, I spent on a morning off 48 minutes making a single espresso.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Is this because Matthew Fraser is a big inspiration of yours?
No, it's definitely not.
I know he's all into his espresso.
He is into his espresso. Yeah, he is.
But you do it differently.
Nah, I'm not like Matt.
Did you hear what happened to Matt?
Go on.
He ruptured his ACL, tore his meniscus, blew his knee out in a jiu-jitsu warm-up.
That was a little while ago, eh? Yeah.
How about that?
Did you find it funny?
I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Someone you shared that
The
with me,
fittest
Alex.
man on the planet.
Yes.
For 5 years running or whatever it was. I'm like, holy shit. It just,
You would have loved that.
full fucking, I'm sure he's probably most of the way through a great recovery now. And
We need to put an ad campaign out with his story as central to the copy,
as appealing to
being well-rounded. I'm like, look at this fucking guy. Bambi.
Bro, wild, right? I mean, it just speaks to the specificity of things.
Absolutely.
You know, you can just have all of this capacity and then still just fucking some random stuff happens and your knee blows out.
Man, you see it all the time with CrossFitters. Like, are you actually coordinated or are you just really good at replicating a certain movement pattern?
I mean, it's kind of what coordination is, no?
Well, I mean it in the broad sense of coordination. Like, do you actually have really good body awareness?
Yeah,
or
right.
if you just become really good at hitting a ball to a particular point on the wall and replicating that for 120 reps, which I think that most CrossFitters do. And I say that not from a judgmental perspective, but just from an observational. It's like occasionally in our gym we'll throw in a workout, like we had one yesterday with sandbag get-ups, reverse burpees.
What's a reverse burpee?
It's basically you roll backwards, like in a backwards tuck,
Yep.
and then you use that momentum that you generate backwards to roll
up to your
forwards
feet.
again and come up to a stand.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's like, it's a kind of weird movement, right?
Candlestick roll.
Candlestick.
Poor man's version. Please go on, CrossFitter.
It's like the same thing, different names, different perspectives.
What is it called? Sorry?
Candlestick roll is that same action.
Yeah.
But instead of being in a tuck, you open out to a hollow shape.
Okay.
And you point toes towards the ceiling.
candlestick.
Yeah, and then you roll back to the feet.
You know what I'm going to
then
do
you
next week? We program
Invent a
reverse
new CrossFit
burpees.
exercise.
I'm just going to call it like a candlestick roll and everyone's going to show up and be like, what the fuck's that?
Oh, the shittest exit. It's so hard. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So, okay.
Go on.
Candlestick roll
Candlestick roll. Sandbag get up is on the shoulder.
in a bear hug position.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Sandbags over the shoulder. And those three movements are kind of novel and different because they're not necessarily predicated on a linear movement pattern. And you see how many people really struggle with that. Like a burpee is quite simple. It's like sprawl and then stand up. But a reverse burpee predicates this like ankle range of motion, predicates that you kind of have an awareness of your body in space as you're tucking and rolling back.
Upside down.
Yeah, exactly.
over shoulders.
Absolutely. So,
Arse over tit, we call it.
yeah, okay.
Classic
I'm learning
JB
new
terminology.
things. I'm learning new things. I'm going to take these back to the CrossFit gym. And you guys are in for an interesting next week. But yeah, the point is, it's I said you expose people to these movements which are seemingly simple, but because they're different, they really struggle with them. And you're like, okay, do you actually have well-rounded athletic capability? Or you just become exceptionally skilled at replicating a movement like a snatch, which is very skilled, but after a while becomes super specific. And I suppose if poor Matty Boy knew that, he wouldn't have to go through this lengthy process.
Might have made it to a 2-stripe white belt status. No, yeah, it's a really good point you make. I guess there's a case for coordination is a learned skill. But there definitely are people who naturally possess greater natural body coordination. They're the people that you can show them something or teach them something and they pick it up pretty quick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But 48 minutes to make a coffee. That's been my record so far.
So why so long?
Because espresso and your friend that you shouted out before will know this with coffee is it's exceptionally nuanced. Like you weigh out the beans, you weigh out the water, you want to make sure those variables are consistent. And then you've got the grind as well, which needs to be adjusted depending on the day because the external temperature can affect the grind. So every day you're tweaking these variables. And this morning I had the morning off, so I really wanted to get the perfect espresso. And so I'd make one and it wasn't perfect. And I was like, oh, that's too bitter. I need to adjust the grind. Make another one. And you make 3 or 4. And this is what happened that morning. I made 3 or 4 and then I started getting really frustrated. And then I forgot to top up the machine with water. And so it's like you overlook that and then you got to do it again. And it was kind of like this, turned into this meditative process. And at the end of it, it was like, I didn't make the perfect coffee. I made a good coffee, but it was like...
Was it better than all the others?
It was better than all the others. It was better than all the others. It was kind of worth it.
Was there a sunk cost bias involved there?
A what, sorry?
Sunk cost bias.
What does that mean?
Whereby you had just sunk 45 minutes into making coffees. And so you're like, this one's definitely going to be a good one. And then you get there, oh, that's the one.
Well, now that I know that, yes.
So you were like making these, sip it, tip it out?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I respect that.
Yeah, well, it's a practice, isn't it? And like the point is not to be perfect. The point is to be better and apply effort and intent to your task. And like once again, it's like you might not ever hit the perfect back squat. It doesn't mean you just like hit a shitty one and go, yeah, that'll do me for the day. Like try and be better. Try and do a good back squat.
Yeah.
Then when you've, spent a good 48 minutes on it, maybe not 48, but the point is, like I said, it shouldn't absolve you of the responsibility to like try. And to circle back to the previous point around like, let's get under the bar and move. It's like, yeah, but like still have the intent to move well, still have the intent to give your best effort. And like a guy that I kind of go back and forth with in the training space has given me this great analogy about sometimes it's like shoveling a big pile of dirt. Some days you use a spoon, some days you use a shovel. So it's like you still got to dig the thing. And once again, some days you're not going to be effective. So you're using a spoon. You got a couple of little, spoonfuls and you're like, cool, I've trained for the day and that's where I'm at. And then other days it's like you get the freaking bulldozer in and you're like, man, I'm killing it. But as I said, it shouldn't stop you from training and shouldn't stop you from trying to, shovel the dirt. So it's a really appropriate analogy, I think, for both coffee and for training. There's so many parallels. Maybe that's why I like it. Maybe that's why Fraser likes it.
Was it rewarding for you to spend that time? Okay.
Absolutely.
I think that's a, because maybe with the training analogy, the dirt shoveling, it's like, dirt shoveling kind of sucks. Like, fuck, sometimes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas, but if that process is inherently rewarding, even when it's not as fruitful, maybe from this session compared to another one, it's still worth doing.
Well, we can keep going with this analogy. It's like the kind of, most of us just want a good cup of coffee. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah, a good cup of coffee.
But sometimes I need a time cap.
You do need a time cap, and that's totally reasonable. But what I'm going to communicate is like we want the end product of the good cup of coffee, just like we want the end product of the 6-pack abs or the 110 kilo clean and jerk, right?
Yeah.
But it's like the actual practice is the shoveling of the dirt. The actual practice is like me adjusting the grind, measuring the beans, weighing the water, all that stuff. Same as training. It's like the practice is, refining the back squat and like working on your mobility. It's like the end product is a 100 kilo thing. That's what we all want. That's what we all look towards. But if all we're focused on is that and we're not doing the practice element, then we're never going to get there. And it's like, I like the practice and not a lot of people do, which is fine and very reasonable. But you kind of can't have one without the other unless you pay someone to make the coffee for you. You can't pay someone to get you a 6-pack though. Yeah,
so where does that fit in then to the analogy? Going to a coffee shop and ordering one. I think
it's time efficiency. Like, you could pay someone to make you a really good coffee, and you would save a lot of time.
Are you not paying someone to help coach you? Shovel the dirt. Like, hey man, nice rotational action there. Hey, maybe we should try the other side to keep it balanced out. oh, you don't look a bit tired there, so maybe use the spoon today. Doing a great job, mate.
Yeah, well, that's the time efficiency thing, isn't it? It's like, but you've still got to shovel the thing.
You've still got to shovel it.
You just save a bit of time when you hire a coach who's an exceptional communicator and who can like kind of read if you're an overdoer or an overthinker and goes, hey man, like Paulie said, let's balance out those sides.
Get some candlestick rolls done.
I'm still marveling at the 42 minutes?
48
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something else.
Because we just prior to recording, I was talking about pod coffee, which is kind of fucking complete opposite. So I'm sitting here feeling a little guilty.
Yeah.
But also, I made
Like a bit of a bad boy.
yeah, I'm bad. Like, fuck that. I got a pod, and the idea was that, sometimes I need to use this technique so that I can, make time for other things. This morning, I didn't spend 48 minutes. I made 2 kids sandwiches, put some washing on, made a cup of tea, and ran out the door. So 48 minutes seems like a lifetime ago for me, but I completely appreciate it.
Sure. I have a question for you, gentlemen, and it relates. You can both do ring muscle ups.
I practically invented the shit.
What's your current training goal, Paulie? You have this spring routine I've noticed on the board.
Oh, fuck, that's old.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that I don't still want that. Like, I still want that. It's quite old, that one. Went in a different direction. This year, the only physical goal that I have, that I set at the turn of the year, is to compete this year.
Cool.
I think I said compete twice, actually. We just clicked over to 1st of June, and that came back to me on the 1st of June. I was like, holy shit, my annual goals, let's check this out again. So that's it, compete. And that means jiu-jitsu because it's kind of the easiest thing to access.
Yep.
I just want to compete this year.
Yep. Let's imagine that the ring routine is still relevant, though, for the sake of this example. It was some pretty fancy stuff. Like you had rolls and you had a ring muscle up
basics here
in
at Jungle
there.
Brothers, but go on.
You had a ring muscle up embedded in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Like there's certain aspects of it. So to someone like me, the ring muscle up is the good coffee. So I'll just like get the pod to get the ring muscle up. But to you, you've got this like extravagant ring routine, which like embeds the ring muscle up / the good coffee in there. And it's like, I haven't put in anywhere near as much time to developing my competence on the rings as you. I still want good coffee, so I'll do like a ring muscle up every once in a while because I value good coffee. But you're much more versed and practice in all those nuances on the ring. So it's like, yeah, it's a product of time and intent. We still want the same things though.
Yeah.
Does that analogy make sense?
Yeah, I get it. It's kind of like, like it's relative to the person's kind of reality and their goals and where they're at. So you want a coffee, I want a coffee, but what I understand is coffee and what you understand of coffee might be different because of where I'm currently standing.
Yeah. I'm getting the pod equivalent of a ring muscle up.
Yeah.
You're getting the 48-minute equivalent of the ring muscle up with your ring routine. Same goal, very different process and practice.
But wait, that's saying then that your training goal of the muscle up is inferior in nature to his training goal of the ring routine.
Whoa.
Assuming that pod coffee is
hold on a
less.
sec. That's a big assumption, Joseph.
But let's call a spade here, gentlemen. But I'm just, because my point is that what we're saying? Because if we are, those two things are both as valuable in the context of the individual who's chasing them.
Yeah. Well, Paulie was saying the pod is sometimes valuable in the context of his morning. So, yeah.
Okay, so right. So they are of equal value.
They are of equal value.
Well, you get the buzz.
You get the
from
buzz.
Both, from both options.
Yeah.
You just kind of consume it or make it differently.
You just dry retch off the pod.
Not when you put full cream
The
milk
show
in it
loses
like I
its
do.
carnivore sponsorship.
Sorry, thickened cream.
Yeah.
Look at that cream in there. So there's no drenching. It's like a dessert for breakfast.
Yeah, see, I will invest in coffee, and I will take time to go to the best if I'm in a different town or whatever, as I'm sure you guys do. You'll Google the best place, ask for recommendations, go there, get the coffee, it's great. Maybe buy some beans, whatever. Have the nice things at home. I got a nice grinder, hand grinder that I take a lot of pride in using. But I'll also pump a Moccona, like if I'm whatever, like not at home, but like if we're out the farm or something, I'll pump a Moccona first thing in the morning because it's just fucking delicious, and perfect, and it's instant. Like it actually is. So what's that? Am I bouncing
so
between
deep.
being a good man and being a piece of shit?
I think it speaks to having realistic expectations as trainers and athletes ourselves. And I was sharing this with Joey earlier this morning about how there is a particular group in our gym that have kind of strayed off the beaten path of the program, and they're kind of doing their own thing downstairs. And my expectation is that people come to our gym to do the program and to be coached by people like myself. And so I had built up this story in my head about how they were assholes and they didn't like me or whatever. And it was kind of immature in hindsight. And since then, I've kind of taken a little bit of ownership and gone, well, when am I just avoiding confronting them because I'm insecure versus, when is there some genuine warrant for keeping some space? And generally it is the first one where it is predicated on some desire to not do the thing that I don't want to do. And so what I did is I got this person's phone number and I gave that person a call, and it turns out that there's a reason for going downstairs and doing their thing. They've got a little bit of stuff going on, and they're not in a position in the context of their lives to dedicate the appropriate time and commitment to coming upstairs and doing the class. So it speaks to that idea around expectations as coaches and athletes. And maybe in the past we've been guilty of bad-mouthing a lack of effort or intent from a client and even ourselves. But ultimately it's like there's context, there's environment, and yes, the pod has its place. The pod has its place because it's relevant to our expectation.
Totally, man.
Yeah.
I think the more I coach, the more I've been in the industry. Like, for me, the training has become less of the focus and more like the vehicle, because it's just human development. It's like personal development, but training's the main vehicle. And then I consider how can they train, when can they train, to what level can they train? But there's so many other things that's going on in every individual's life that you really cannot ignore. And it's easy enough to do that when you're looking after a group, like a tribe in the gym or even a group in the class, because it's more efficient to look after a herd if you've got, a few principles that you should kind of, or rules that you can measure everyone against. But fuck, so much shit going on right now.
Yeah.
I know the coaches here are really mindful of that, especially in the past couple of years. But yeah, man, there's so much shit going on that there's infinite reasons why someone isn't prepared to be in that class, eh?
Yeah.
Shit going on societally, culturally. What are you getting at?
Societally, culturally, personally,
Yeah.
Like
COVID and rising interest rates and shit.
Exactly. And yeah, I think I've heard every story, but fuck, there's just more people coming up that, have financial issues or relationship issues or work issues or just internal issues. And, the gym is not just a place for, developing your physicality. It's all that other stuff. And it always has been. Well, no matter what you label it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. I'd be curious if we could all kind of have a reflective moment and go when in our lives have we been in that position where we've needed the gym or training for another reason apart from awesome ring muscle ups?
All the time, man. All the time. All the time.
Yeah.
When I think about it.
I'd agree. You're probably biasing towards different things at different times.
Yeah.
And as you're biasing towards chasing down a specific ability or movement. But then sometimes you're just keeping yourself on track with a routine and a habit. You know, because you know it's good for you, even though you're not working on something specific or you even don't want to be there. But I would say it's always woven into it.
Yeah.
I've got to blow out energy.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to run. I mean, look at this physique.
Right.
It's like putting a fucking Ferrari in the garage and putting a fucking...
Like a Black Panther.
You know? Putting a little hood on the car and just letting it sit there.
That's right. Sacrilege.
Yeah, well, I think that... Man, we got to pull this one back from the Black Panther now.
Let's go deeper on that analogy.
Yeah. What else are Panthers good at?
But I think that an important thing to communicate, and like from the perspective of like we've just identified, like physicality or training, and adjusting your expectations throughout the year to serve you in different reasons. And what comes up for me when I think about the utility of physicality is in times when I feel the most angst, and like it might have been following a really, some really terrible news or something like that. I've often gone outside for a walk or jumped on the bike, and the physicality is like I'm not doing intervals on the rowing machine. I am moving consistently without any expectations because I know that the physicality is serving me in some respect apart from like this, you know, endeavor for self-awareness or, you know, or some muscle ups or whatever. And like to the coach, you might look at me going for a leisurely stroll and be like, that guy's not working hard enough. Like he needs to run. He needs to, you know, he needs to earn the workout, or same thing on the bike. Like why isn't he doing intervals on the rowing machine? But it's like that physicality, while taking a different form, is serving another purpose apart from how us coaches and myself personally myopically tend to look at training.
Yeah. Are you getting at like there's a cultural thing there whereby if you're training, it should look like this? And if you're doing something outside of that, people are like, why are you...
I think what I'm communicating is from my own perspective of like holding such a ridiculously high standard with regards to training and like not really having the empathy to see otherwise. And like I said, my fear was keeping me back from having a conversation that ultimately has been great because I'm like, oh man, I didn't realize there was all that going on. I was actually the arsehole in that situation because I was failing to take the lead and empathize. And I think what's important is that you communicate your expectations clearly and then you empathize. Because I think it's important that people know where you stand. So, for example, if they come into a class at Jungle Brothers, the expectation is that you're going to interact with people. There's going to be an element of play and touch, and you're here to, you know, have a good time and train hard. And you make it clear that those are your expectations. And then if you have someone not doing that, like we had in our instance, the assumption shouldn't be that that person is an asshole. The assumption should be on us as leaders in the space to lead with a bit of empathy, start that conversation and say, hey man, is everything all right? They know your expectations. You've kind of done your job there. But then that empathy piece is really important, and I've failed miserably at that for many, many years as a coach. And I think now, the last few months, I would say, ironically, since communicating my expectations clearer and taking some leadership and in some respects objectively taking a harder line, ironically has allowed me to be softer and more empathetic.
Can I ask, do you have any inkling as to, you said you said that you think you failed this for some time, like what's changed, and like have you thought about what was going on with you at that one time and then something that changed and now you see things differently?
The best answer I can give to that is I actually wasn't thinking about how I was like in that situation. Selfishly, I was kind of thinking about how can I be a better leader and how can I face some of my own fears and insecurities. And as I said, I wasn't thinking about myself in that situation. I was like, man, I just want to be a better leader. I want to be a better coach. And the next step and phase of that is having some conversations that I don't want to have. So it was less about what would I need in that situation when I'm going through some shit, and more like how can I just be better as a leader in the space. And then the downstream effect was not what I expected, in the sense that in being, as I said, more willing to, face confrontation and being more assertive, it's allowed me to be more empathetic and soft, which is a weird dichotomy, but it's probably a more mature place to be.
Fuck, the vibe got somber in the last 20 minutes.
Pod coffee.
It's a good realization to have, but I like how you put it. Making your expectations clear. But I'm trying to understand like what that looked like for you at the time. And was that you were a hard coach and you were at the front of the class demanding high expectations of people?
I was a soft coach with hard expectations.
Oh, so you didn't verbalize those?
Yeah. Versus now I feel like maybe what I'm growing into is...
With high expectations.
Yes.
Yeah. It's kind of internal.
Yeah,
you're not actually putting that forward.
Yeah, I'm the opposite of that. I have these hard expectations, but I'm softer in the way that I'm, managing people. Which I don't like. The thing that springs to mind in this conversation is like, I imagine that sort of it's like being a dad. Like, you have these clear lines and boundaries, but then you have this like real soft, empathetic and nurturing side. Maybe you gentlemen can speak to that. Am I drawing some fair parallels there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that they're there in life always, right? Like it's just kind of both sides of a person, but definitely I can say as a father, they're perhaps amplified or more brought clearly to the forefront, where it's like your kid falls over, hurts themselves. It's time to be incredibly nurturing, And then there's also times when it's, whatever, set expectations, be a bit stricter, clear on things.
Yeah,
you've done it 16 times. What do you think?
Oh yeah, it's the same but different. Like if there was a bit of a spectrum there where you had nurturing and high pressure of high level of expectations, maybe when you're coaching you've got to balance that somewhere in the middle, whereas I think as a father you're mainly nurturing and you're trying to sprinkle in the expectations here and there, but it's mainly nurturing.
Yeah, well, you find your ratio, don't you?
Yeah.
We all know those dads that have been hardcore disciplinarians and maybe lack the nurturing.
Yes. Yep.
Does that speak to a maturity thing though? That's kind of what I'm kind of driving at.
For the child?
No, for you as men, as fathers. Like the more mature you get, the better leader you become, the better you get at balancing those two dichotomies.
I wouldn't say it's a maturity thing. I see it as a communication thing, and being able to articulate in your mind what you want from someone and then being able to communicate that to them. So at times you might want someone to feel at ease and relaxed and not judged and, and that's, and supported and loved, and that's the nurturing side. But then at times you want someone to do something specific. Now is the time to do it. Mm-hmm. And I need you to understand that it's that time.
Yeah, pick up the heavy shit and go.
Yeah, or maybe it's time to brush your teeth. I'm not fucking telling you again. Like that, it's, so, and I think that's just knowing what you want and knowing what the time is now. That as a communicator for me definitely gets better as I get older.
Yeah. It sounds like the element underlying all that is this layer of self-awareness, right? Because it predicates that you know what you want, and to know what you want, you, to an extent, have to know yourself pretty well.
I think now I can see the parallels with what you're saying about that person, because and your situation with the class. Let me see if I can hang on to this thought, because you want to be a good father, and you need to behave a certain way to them. Sometimes it's not natural to be nurturing at a time, and you might fail at that when the call is for nurturing, and you're going to regret that. And maybe that's you like realizing later that fuck, I could have handled that better. I'm not actually serving that member, or I'm not making the good headway with my relationship with my kids, sort of thing. But it doesn't come naturally. But ultimately, you want what's best for the both of you. So you go away and you think about, fuck, how can I do it? Yep. Maybe you'll read something, or you'll talk to your partner, and you'll come back and you'll try to apply something different to the situation. I guess that might be like where it wasn't a big change, but it was because you wanted a better outcome. You're like, I need to go away and think about this, and then how do I do it better?
Yeah.
And then you start applying that.
And that's why the word maturity, like just based on what Paulie described then, and you can kind of correct me if I'm wrong, but in another way what you said was you handled a situation that the outcome wasn't what you wanted it to be. You had to then go away and reflect, which requires maturity because it predicates that you have taken some responsibility for the outcome, as opposed to just like what I was doing before, which was casting them off as an asshole and going like, oh, you got to sort your shit out. It's like, no, be the leader, be mature, reflect on your actions, come back to the conversation now with a clearer head and an understanding of how we can manipulate an outcome. Manipulate's a strong word, but how we can kind of, direct an outcome that's positive for the both of us. And as I said, I think that requires a pretty considerable amount of maturity, but maturity rooted in this self-awareness, because as I said, that reflection piece of going like, on a sec, when was I quick to judge or cast this person off as an asshole and I imagine, as I said, kids would be very much like that, where you're like, fuck man, my kid's just being a little asshole. But it's like, have you communicated your expectations clearly enough? Like, do they know, where the lines are? And once again, the analogy being in the class, do your members, do they understand your expectations? Have you communicated clearly, these are the boundaries, this is what we want out of this class? And then if you've done a good job of that, then generally speaking, the outcome's going to be positive for both coach and client, versus when it's that that wishy-washy. Because, once again, I'll speak for myself, because when I'm not, secure enough to be assertive, and then the client does something different, and then I resent them, it's not a very mature way about going about that relationship. So to tie it all back, it's when I've started to take a bit more responsibility for that, have seemingly an uncomfortable interaction from the start and say, hey, like, these are my expectations. This is how we're going to run things today. There's a security in that for the client, and they can go, cool, I know where the line is. I'm here to be guided within this experience now. And another example, which always sticks out to me, was when I was doing some training with Joey, and I brought my dog along, Rain, and she was kind of doing her thing. She's a little bit unsettled, kind of every so often go and give her a little pat, make sure she sat down. And then she made her way over to a plant and started chewing it. And Joey's like demeanor changed like that. And he's like, she can't eat the plant. And it was like, we were just having a chat. It was all good. And as soon as she started eating the plant, it was like, she can't eat the plant. And I was like, oh, okay, I know where Joey stands with dogs eating plants now. And my respect for him heightened massively. It wasn't like I went, fuck, Joey's an arsehole. Like, it's just a plant. Like, it was like, okay, there's a clear expectation. There's a clear boundary. I trust this person more now. I respect this person more for, being clear with me. And Rain hasn't touched a plant since.
That was the last time she was ever seen at Jungle Bunny.
No, he's always been good at that. And it's a good point. I would say that I've had to work on that over the years. But I can totally relate to feeling a certain way or about someone and someone's actions but not voicing it and then just quietly being pissed at them.
Yeah.
And I just thought about that with the dog thing because, people's dogs started running rife in here, coming too deep into the gym, too often, barking, distracting people.
Molting.
And I was like, fucking getting cheesed off all the time.
Cheesed
off. Fucking cheese. But, eventually...
Paulie fucking put his foot down and he put up a sign.
It's subtle. It's in the corner, but they know it's fucking
Official
there.
company policy.
You know what I mean? I said, guys.
It's a step. It's a forward step, right?
And it's not even a line. It's a sign. It says, past this point. No dogs past this point.
I actually noticed that when I came in, right? I noticed it, man. So you're doing a good job.
Thanks, mate.
It is very subtle.
Maturing.
Maturing, yeah.
Yeah, well, we try to avoid awkward conversations generally, don't we, as people? And we also don't want to... We try to avoid confrontation, which usually involves an awkward conversation. But we also don't want to put other people out. The paradox there is that we also know people crave direction and people crave clarity. And especially in an environment like a gym where you are guiding people. People don't want wishy-washy. They want, I got 60 minutes here, tell me what the fuck to do. I come here because you tell me what to do and I trust you and it's usually good. So let's go. So we bounce between that, and I'm sure you can look at times in your coaching where you're extremely assertive and clear in your communication, and then you contrast that with conversation you have with your partner on the weekend where you're like, fuck, or with your kids where you're like, fuck, why don't I just tell them what I actually wanted or what I meant? I said something to my stepdaughter last night, to Hattie, about setting the table. And I said to her, I asked her to set the table for dinner and she did it in part. And then I wanted her to finish the job. But the way that I asked her to finish the job was so wishy-washy. Because I didn't want to offend her, and I'm like, oh, she's a bit unwell at the moment. She's got a flu, a cold. And I'm like, and so I said it in this way, and she understood what I meant. But I just instantly was like, what the fuck did you just say? That was so unclear, And I was kind of critiquing myself instantly for just not saying what I actually meant, which was, hey, can you finish that job?
Yeah,
now. So I think that's a real practice, right? Kind of what you're alluding to.
I reckon the more that you are, say, assertive and you make clear expectations of, your classes in particular and of your clients, I found that the much happier I am. And
the much happier they are generally.
And exactly. And it's better for everyone. And like I said, I was slow. I was the soft coach with low expectations when I started. And it took me ages to start to build my expectations as I got deeper into, knowledge base of training and stuff like that. And there was a lag there with the assertiveness. But as that grew, and I've always taken Joey as the model because you're very good at it. You know that.
Thank you.
And I'm on the other end of the spectrum. That's why we work well together.
Yang, baby.
Yeah, baby. You know, and now, like, you know, I'm just much happier coaching. People get more out of it. It's so much more fun and satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you feel like when you do all of those things, set the expectations and communicate clearly, you have done everything you can.
Yes.
Right? Like you're like, I fulfilled, like I controlled what I could control and did my best. And that's not going to guarantee that everyone, whatever, reaches the desired outcome.
Yeah.
But it's like I did my best. Whereas the other is I didn't really do my best. You know, like you come away and you're like, it was a bit. It's like my conversation with Hattie. I'm like, it was a bit kind of stupid what I said then.
Yeah.
You know, or I fucking didn't run that class very well. It was a bit. I kind of didn't describe the workout, or I didn't coach that thing very well. Waffled.
I'll tell you a funny side story because it's related. Last night, with my kid coming home from soccer training, and I fucked it up many times, and I get frustrated. But now I've learnt, and I think a lot of parents do this consciously or subconsciously, but you learn over time. I take him to soccer training on Thursday nights, and when we come back, it's like 7:45 or later, 10 to 8. Like bedtime should be 8:39 these days. For him, he's 10. But he needs to have dinner, have a shower, and, you know, do whatever. And he has like a bit of a routine where he does that. He reads, he faffs about and shit.
Milks it.
Most other evenings. But on soccer training night, like, we're way behind the 8 ball, and I've come back from soccer training and it's like, boom, all good, jump in the shower, mate. Yep. And we'll have late dinner together. And then before you know it, he's just carrying on like he's gotten home after school and he's doing this and that. And it runs into a late bedtime. And he's like, kind of like, what? Like, stop hassling me type of thing. Over time, I've come to give him the pep talk. And it's like, and in the car, I was very, very consciously doing it because I do it all the time now, but it took me a while. But it's almost like transitioning from one section of the workout to another. It's like a transition of evening kind of events. And it's like, cool, soccer training was made, you talk about it, and you're like, hey, so when we get home, it's still a school night. And look, it's almost 8 o'clock, and we still need to go to bed like at a decent time. So what you need to do is as soon as you get in there, have your shower quickly. And I'll head up to dinner, and then we'll have dinner. But you have to get ready and go to bed. Like, you know, you can't do what you usually do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just like basically telling him what we're going to do before we get there. And fuck, it just works so much better.
Yeah. Yeah. Setting those expectations.
Yeah.
That, man, I fully vibe with that. Even with Leo at 2.5.
Yeah.
If we pep talk him.
Yes.
About what's going to, hey, like
yes.
I had to take him to get a vaccine the other day. And, like telling him the day before, hey, mate, tomorrow afternoon we're going to go to the doctor, get your vaccine, you know. And then that day, hey, mate, this afternoon. And when the times when you don't do it, you're like, oh, my God, like that whole situation just blew out because I didn't.
Blows out.
Yeah, I didn't set their expectations.
Yeah.
How funny that, I can imagine that you have these realizations, but you still make these mistakes.
Yeah.
Like you forget to do the thing.
Here's my last tip on that, is catch them either when you're walking with them or in the pram or otherwise or in the car. Because at those times, they're the best times you can talk to your kids because they can't go anywhere. And like actually walking my kids to school or back is when I have the best conversations.
Yeah, right.
Because as soon as they're home or at a destination, especially at home where they know everything and there's literally a billion touch points of things in their house that they could do, they can't concentrate. So when you're walking, those little transitions is when you got to do it.
It's actually quite a profound tip because as I'm reflecting now, some of my most challenging conversations in a relationship context have been when Hayley and I are walking the dog together.
Mate,
we're
it's
walking,
the best.
We're out. You know, as soon as we get back home, like you said, you can go in your separate spaces.
Yeah.
But during those walks, there's no escape really forces you into into that moment.
Absolutely.
We had a nice walk and talk today.
We did have a nice walk and talk today, even though the whole time I was like, fuck, man, I'm trying to get out of this sort of thing. But I couldn't because I was on a walk.
That's right.
Yes.
Captive audience.
Yeah,
That's
well, my
You didn't know where you were.
experience-
You were lost in the backwaters of botany.
Yeah, well, look, my experience with kids particularly is in the context of teaching in schools. I've had a little bit of experience in those situations, and it's funny the parallels between teaching and coaching, also the differences, but the parallels particularly, and it's a soft teacher as well, right? And particularly when you come in as a student teacher and you're having to control a bunch of rowdy year 8s, if you walk in as a soft teacher, they eat you alive. But towards the back end of my experiences, I learned that, and I saw this demonstrated, you know, you might get a casual teacher come in and literally the first thing they say is, sit down, these are my expectations. If you want to talk, raise your hand. No phones. Bang, 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 bang. And it's all really explicit. And I started doing that. And lo and behold, massive difference. Once again, kind of uncomfortable at the start because it's, you know, this whole attention on me and you don't know how the kids are going to respond. Are they going to think you're a hard ass, or you know they're not going to
Eat shit.
that
Yeah.
right? But
Sit down, Jay Quillen.
but dramatically different outcomes just from, and you like what I started doing is literally using the words, these are my expectations. And it's like, the clearer you are with that, and you might not use that with a 2.5-year-old, you know, or a 10-year-old, but it's
I
like,
use it.
You do?
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, they understand it, right?
Yeah.
Knee on the neck and everything, yeah?
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, you got the physical side that's also reinforcing the big words.
Oh, wow. But yeah, there's value in it, and as I said, for me, it's something that I'll continue to practice. But just in the few short months that I've really made that a conscious effort, there's been some pretty dramatic changes for the better because of that.
Man, it's cool. It's such a good reminder just for myself. My mind's ticking over now. I can't wait to coach the next class tonight. I cannot wait.
Yeah, I think great, like that example of walking into a room full of kids or students and saying, these are my expectations. That seems quite nerve-wracking. It's much easier to be like, oh, hey guys, how is everyone?
Yeah.
I'm so-and-so, I'll be teaching you today.
Yeah,
But that just goes nowhere to garnering any respect
absolutely.
or letting anyone know what it is that you want,
Yeah.
does it?
Yeah.
Same thing with coaching downstairs. It's easy just to kind of roll into a workout and start showing people the workout versus going, hey, everyone, come over here. Let's talk about today's workout. This is let me tell you what I want from it.
Yeah.
But it's the same shit. Like, if you just roll into it, there's no expectations. It's loose. It's, you know.
Well, the other example that I can think of in the last 2 weeks is we did a competition workout called DT in CrossFit. Have you guys heard of DT?
No.
No.
5 rounds for time,
Mm-hmm.
12 deadlifts, 9 hang power cleans, and then 6 shoulder to overhead. The prescribed weights for the workout are 70 kilos for the gentleman. I think it's 50 or 55 for the ladies. 55, I believe.
Yeah.
And, you know,
How many rounds? 5 rounds.
5 rounds. You do something like that in a CrossFit gym. Like, not everyone's doing the RX weights, which is irrelevant, but it's meant to be a hard, challenging workout. And halfway through the workout, I was coaching it. People started changing their weights. And I was like, you can't fucking do that. Like, that's a no-go.
Don't you know what this
This
is?
is my internal dialogue, right? And, you know, it was a 12-minute time cap, so it's short, fast, and hard. And, you know, 90% of the class had finished. There was still one person going. People started packing their weights away. And I was like, that's really bad etiquette. Really bad etiquette. And this is my internal dialogue. I was like, what are these people doing? That's so rude. Eventually, workout finishes and, you know, everyone does the sprawl on the floor. They're gassed. And everyone packed up. And in my head, I'm thinking, man, I got to have a conversation that I don't want to have. And so before everyone left, we sat down, did some stretching. I was like, guys, this is not to single out anyone. The people that packed away their weights or whatever, or changed weights, knew what they did. But I said, look, this is not to single out anyone. This is me making my expectations clear for in the future. And I said the first thing is, don't change your weights in the middle of a workout. Be accountable to your decisions, unless there's a really good reason for it, which, we all know what a really good reason is in the context of that. But for the most part, it was like, it's getting a bit hard, so I'm going to change weight. So I said, don't do that. Be accountable to your choices. And I said the second thing is, in my classes, I think it's really poor etiquette to pack up before someone's finished. And as I said, it was this, 3-minute sort of conversation that we had at the end of class. And I knew I was walking on a fine line because I didn't want to upset or offend these people. But it needed to be had. And, I'm grateful that those people have come back to the gym and there's no kind of animosity or resentment. But once again, it just speaks to, this is clear. And as I said, it would be easier in that instance to just go, they're pieces of crap because they change their weight so they pack up. But they didn't know.
Yeah, you haven't
They didn't
told
know.
them.
And it's like, a lot of the time, it is ignorance. It's like, maybe you get 1 out of every 10 people that genuinely is a bit of an asshole. It's pretty rare though, right? And like, generally they don't last long in your spaces anyway, right? They're the kind of people that come in that for whatever reason, they might have this ego that's a little bit inflated, and you kind of go, hey man, let's try this, try that. They don't do it and you're like, whatever, like they won't last long. But most of the time it's like, there's just an ignorance there, and it's your failure as a leader to make people aware.
Yeah.
So I think we've all got these examples, right? Where when we took some ownership and got over ourselves.
The agitation you feel there is actually your flaw, which is that you didn't tell them what you wanted, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's important to always come back to, is like, well, what did I do or not do that allowed that to happen? And it's usually on you.
Mm-hmm.
Extreme ownership, man. Jocko Willink. Not that I'm a huge fan of Jocko, but that's what the sentiment is, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this morning, but the reason I love what I do as a coach is because the clients are mirrors. And what came to me this morning when I was sitting, as I was explaining to Joey,
as he was throwing out the 15th coffee he'd made. Discarded like a Spartan baby.
Oh, just gone.
Not good enough.
No, this morning was very different. I went for a walk with the dog, and I found this beautiful bit of rock on Cronulla. The sun was just beaming down on me, and it was great. I had this moment of clarity. And what was coming to me was like kind of my life's question, if you will. If I'm going to package it like such, is who am I? That's what feels to me like my life's question. I don't know if it's the same for you, gentlemen, and if it's not, that's fine. Like, we're all on different journeys, but that feels to me like my life's question. And so I was like, coaching allows me to answer that piece by piece, right? It's like our clients are mirrors, and they're reflecting back at us who we are. And to your point about the agitation around it's frustration at, my insecurity for confrontation. It's like that the mirror was reflecting back at me, and when I kind of recognized that, I went, okay, this insecurity, I have a choice now to face this. So, as I said, coaching is a big part of that for me in helping me answer who I am. Because I feel that, well, a lot of what we understand about ourselves is kind of predicated on what people show us, right?
It's the exact same way I describe parenting, if we're going back to that, which is kids are a mirror. And they give you the opportunity to address anything that was unaddressed when you were younger, potentially, or your life before you had them. It's the same thing. And as you said, same thing. It's a choice. It comes up. You can either ignore it and just keep going on the way that you've always gone, or you can try and figure it out, go to the source of it and do what you've done.
Yeah. How does that sit with you in terms of this idea of a life's question, if you will. Did I just get too esoteric, or are we cool?
We're still cool.
Okay, cool.
Definitely too esoteric for me. I've told you this before, right? I don't ascribe such meaning to coaching people. Mm-hmm. Not to say that I see the importance. I give it any less weight or importance. For me, it's more of a, I don't know. It's less, there's less philosophy behind it, perhaps. But with your example there of the kid, I'm like, yeah, that resonates for sure. The mirror piece.
Well, I suppose coaching is a tool. Like, regardless of how much importance you place on it, the question itself, like, what are we here for? Like, that's kind of what I was communicating, whether that idea around figuring out who we actually are, regardless of whether you do that through coaching or through kids or through badminton or meditation. Like, that question to me is what feels important. And the question I had for you guys is whether that feels like a really prominent question in your lives, irregardless of whether you do it through coaching or kids. Whether you've thought about it to that extent.
I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't. Is the idea that the way you see it there is that you're whittling away at discovering who you are as a person through this process?
Yeah. And once again, the process doesn't need to be the process of coaching. It could just be, like, broadly speaking, the process of being alive.
I would say, especially because coaching did not come naturally to me. I had to overcome, like, a lot of just fears of standing in front of people and being confident to fucking just deliver a program. Like, just public speaking alone, it's definitely been a huge tool for me for my personal kind of discovery of myself and wondering, what are those thoughts, or, why do you feel that you lack in this area? Why can't you speak on this with confidence and lead? So yeah, absolutely. It's been something that I've been grateful for very consciously, coaching. I don't know if I think, like, who am I while I'm doing it?
Yeah.
I actually see it as like the relationship is inverse in how I see it.
Okay.
It's inverse in that we can ascribe meaning to anything we want, anything we do. And so you can ascribe purpose to anything you do. So you can say, my purpose on this earth is to be an exceptional coach and to help people transform their lives. I'm going to be that guide for them. You can hold on to that is your purpose, and that's how you fulfill your purpose. Or you can be like, well, I'm going to make whatever my job is right now my purpose, and I'm going to do the thing as well as I can, and I'm going to, like, really own that thing. So in that way, I see what you're sort of talking about in terms of your self-development through coaching. I'm like, yeah, that's a byproduct of you teaching people how to get strong and flexible. It's not the reason you do that, at least for me. I
agree. My purpose is to figure out who I am.
No, my purpose is to run a sick workout so they can get hench.
Yeah.
But the byproduct of that process is I am learning about myself as well. But it's not.
This is what you mean by inverse.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
like,
I understand.
What's the vehicle and what's the thing? The vehicle,
Well, it's either or, right? Like, that's the inverse thing. Like, my purpose is to figure out who I am by delivering a sick workout. My purpose is to deliver a sick workout by figuring out who I am. It kind of works both ways.
Yeah, I suppose it implies, though, that for me, I'm like, if I'm being honest about why I got into coaching, that is the thing that, for me, that's the thing. And then what I attach to that is, I'm learning more about myself. I'm developing as a human. You know what I mean?
I actually do 100% know what you mean. And the reason I do is because my brother is very similar. My brother would not, he wouldn't process it like I would. He would go, Jay, my brother is a writer. And he's like, I'm just going to get fucking really good at writing and produce this banging novella. And as a byproduct, he's figuring out who he is. So it's the same reason when you talk about coaching. It's like, I got into it to deliver a sick workout, and as a byproduct, I'm finding out who I am. Versus I feel like I've always kind of started from the other end. I'm like, who am I? And then I'll figure that out by doing the writing or the coaching. And there's a part of me that goes, you're wrong, I'm right. But it's like, no, that's that immaturity and that insecurity coming up again, when ultimately, like, we're kind of both doing it in a way that is inverse but still relevant to the thing that we're all here for.
Yeah. I mean, it's maybe how you see, it's maybe your worldview to an extent, right? How you see things, how your narrative of yourself in this life play, you know? And I think I think, you know, we're probably quite fundamentally different in that way.
I think we're the same. We just go about things differently, but we're kind of arriving towards the same point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not like it makes us different people.
And maybe it's the same with our clients as well. Like, they think that to get X, they need to go here, but you're like, no, buy into my process, and I'll help you get there. But it's like, I don't know, maybe if we, I don't want to say take our hands off the wheel, because we still have a responsibility to guide, but for me personally, maybe a practice would be like, they're trying to get to where you're going, bro. Like, have faith and trust in them. You can demonstrate your process and you can articulate why it might be valuable for them to follow the same thing, but ultimately, like, trust that they're going in the same direction. Is that fair?
It's all fair. They're all points of view.
Yeah, none of it's invalid. A lot of thinking points there. I think it's a good time for us to wrap it up. We're going to pull the pin on it there.
Paulie needs to go make a pod.
When do you go to the States?
I go in 5 weeks, the 11th of July.
How long are you gone for?
I'll be back on the 16th of August.
Oh, let's revisit the conversation when you get back.
Can we get like a little, like an animator to draw up a cartoon of Serge by his window in the kitchen, tossing out a coffee, and looking out, and it says, "Who am I?" I just keep thinking of that picture in my head. I love it.
I love that too.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
Yeah, it would be sick. 48 minutes later, ... Serge still has no idea who he is.
No, I really appreciate the conversation, though.
I appreciate it too, fellas.
Thanks, boys.
It's been awesome.
Cheers, fam.